Grüß Gott, meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren. This is our traditional Bavarian greeting, and it means that we are officially kicking off the second part of DigiHealth Day 2023, hosted by Deggendorf Institute of Technology, European Campus Rottal-Inn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are, on site and online. And my name is Georgi Chaltikan. It's 2 p.m. here in beautiful Pfarrkirchen in Bavaria, Germany, in a fully packed city hall. And we've been working on improving the weather as well. So for the whole week, you guys had nice weather to enjoy Pfarrkirchen and surroundings. But we arranged a little bit of rain just for this afternoon, not to distract you from the stations. So you stay here with us. Digital health is making progress. Obviously, it's growing and it's soon be coming of age. I used to tell my students that digital health is still in its infancy, and that what we have today compared to the real future vision of digital health, of digitally enabled 10P health, we know 5P medicine, and as one of my good friends mentioned, I allowed myself to double those 5Ps to 10P health. So the difference between what we have now and that vision coming up probably in a couple of decades is pretty much like the difference between a Buick of 1930s and the latest Tesla today. So I would say that we're moving towards childhood probably, and we're also making leaps from time to time. If we remember that at the last DigiHealth Day, we still didn't have one very major breakthrough that came immediately after the last DigiHealth Day in November 2022. And obviously, I'm speaking about OpenAI and the beginning of the ChatGPT frenzy. So we're seeing developments not only year by year, but also week by week, and sometimes even day by day. And if you want to hear a good anecdote about that, please approach our colleagues from Barcelona. They will tell you. So, and of course, there is artificial intelligence, which is the booster of digital health. Another good friend asked me yesterday night whether we do AI, and I just answered, you know, there is no digital health without AI any longer. And I'm closing basically this opening few words about digital health because we don't need to basically present it to anyone. As the same colleague, Professor Rajendra Gupta, my good friend, quote to quote, if you're not digital, if you're not doing digital, then you're not really into health. Ladies and gentlemen, before giving it further to our dear guests, say a few words of welcome, I would like to express my appreciation, first and foremost, to our participants, whether on site or online, and especially our students, because you guys know, hello, Brian Adams, you know it's true, everything we do it for you. Thank you for your attendance. It would not have been possible without our brilliant speakers. And I am super happy and honored that we're able to host so many wonderful thought leaders from different parts of the world, really, from Canada all the way to India and from up north Scandinavia all the way to South Africa. And without these people, these thought leaders, obviously, nothing of that would have happened. I'm pleased to welcome again our colleagues from Ukraine and to mention again that we are collaborating with Ukraine National Healthcare University, and they are visiting us already for the second time for the DigiHealth Day. And I would like to take this moment to once again reiterate our commitment to peaceful development and to reiterate our strongest condemnation of any form of violence. Unfortunately, since the last year, the war in Europe not only did not come to its end, but we're now facing yet another war. I would like also to invite you for just a moment of silence for all victims of human-mediated and human-caused violence in the world. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honor to enjoy full support of our authorities and governmental bodies for this event series, the Bavarian State Ministry for Healthcare and Prevention, the District Administration of Rottal-Inn, and of course the municipality of Pfarrkirchen. Thank you very much for your valued support. Much of this would have not been possible without our donors and sponsors. And we're thankful to the city of Pfarrkirchen for also being our donor, not just supporter, to the business analytics company MPP Labs, which is right now headquartered in Yerevan, Armenia, my home country, the local bank Campus Rottal-Inn, and the medical tourism startup Jacob Young. I'm happy to mention all our partners and supporters, global, European, national, and regional professional societies, HIMSS, Healthcare International, Information and Management System Society, ISFTH, the International Society for Telemedicine and Health, EMEA, the International Medical Informatics Association, AFME, the European Federation for Medical Informatics. And it is perhaps worth mentioning that our campus, European campus of Deggendorf Institute of Technology, is a proud institutional member of all the mentioned international think tanks. We're also partnering with Germany Health Society, DGG, Deutsche Gesellschaft für Gesundheit Telematik, with the German Digital Medicine Society, DGDM, Deutsche Gesellschaft für Digitale Medizin, with the German Telemedicine Society, Deutsche Gesellschaft für Telemedicine, with the Bavarian Telemedicine Alliance, Bayerische Telemed-Allianz, and with Armenian Association of Digital Health. We're thankful to our academia partners, the National Healthcare University of Ukraine, we mentioned, the Russian-Armenian University in Yerevan, Armenia, the University of Agder in Norway, the Luleå Technical University in Sweden, as well as a non-profit AI Sweden, the Czech Technical University in Prague, and the Universitat Politècnica de Catalonia, better known as Barcelona Tech. And these universities, they've been also participating. It's that today is the culmination of the entire week of digital health that we've hosted at our campus, named Blended Intensive Program on AI in Healthcare. And I'm absolutely thankful to everybody who has made it possible, including my colleagues here at DIT, including our wonderful staff, and of course, the speakers and the students from all 5 participating universities and 1 non-profit. Special thanks to our media partner, the portal digitalhealthnews.eu, our publication partner. We're very happy and honored that the first issue fully dedicated to digital health, dedicated to DigiHealth Day, in fact, collecting the collection of the proceedings, the papers of the DigiHealth Day, by our own DIT-based Journal of Applied Interdisciplinary Research in collaboration with the Ukrainian Journal of Medical Engineering and Informatics, has just been published in print and online. So there is another instance of collaboration with Ukraine. We're very proud of it, and we hope it will continue. My big thank you and applause actually goes to the chief editors of JER here, Professor Michel Cummings-Cotter, as well as Dr. Christian Steffer, as well as to the editor-in-chief of the Ukrainian Journal, Professor Mintza. Last but certainly not least, a warm welcome also on behalf of the colleagues at DIT ECRI, our Vice President, Professor Horst Kuhnhardt, our Dean, Professor Steckenbauer, and the entire leadership of the school, and of course, on behalf of the dream team behind the DigiHealth Day. We will have an opportunity later today, stay with us, to name and honor each and every one of these wonderful people for their immense contribution to the success of this event series. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, I would like to introduce and to call on stage the next VIP speaker, who is going to provide opening remarks on behalf of the Bavarian State Ministry for Healthcare and Prevention. And this is our longtime supporter and friend, Dr. Georg Münzenrieder. Applause.
So, I hope this is working. Yes. Dear Professor Georgi Chaltikian, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you very much for the invitation. Sehr geehrter Herr Landrat, I'm sorry, I don't know how to translate this in English. So, sehr geehrter Herr Landrat, dear representatives of all the institutions that are involved, that are contributing to this beautiful event, the organizers of the event, ladies and gentlemen. I feel very honored today to speak to you on behalf of the Ministry of Health, Care and Prevention. Thank you very, very much for the kind invitation. You might have heard that I stopped for a moment because until 2 days ago, we were called the Ministry of Health and Care. Prevention, that just came into our name yesterday. So we had a lot of changes during the last days. Some of you may have followed our, what we had on the news. We had elections in Bavaria. Our minister, unfortunately, our old minister, Klaus Holleczek, left the ministry to do another very important job. And yesterday, we were very happy to hear who our new minister will be, and that is Judith Gerlach, the former Minister of Digitalization in Bavaria. So we're very happy that she's in the office now. Unfortunately, it was too short of a notice for her to come here. She would have liked to be here. I was able to talk to her very briefly about this very exciting event here in Pfarrkirchen. And I'm allowed to bring her to bring you the best wishes of her to this event, and hopefully she will be able to join next year. We will work on that. And people from Munich, as I am, are sometimes a bit, how can I say, they think that the only place where digital health is happening in Bavaria is Munich, maybe also a little of Nuremberg, Erlangen, where the medical valley is. But these people, as me, are proven wrong today, because coming here to Pfarrkirchen, I really can see that this is one of the hotspots for digital health, not only in Bavaria, but far beyond. I'm very impressed, and I think everybody here in the room can be very impressed, and probably is very impressed, that we have a lot of international speakers. We have an international crowd in the audience, and all of that on a very high international level. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the other speakers here. So it's very impressive, and many thanks again to Georgi Chaltikian to make this possible for the 4th year in a row. That is really very impressive. And thus we are very proud from the Ministry of Healthcare and Prevention to be a partner of this very important event in Bavaria. What can we do with such an event? What can we learn from it? I think it's very, very good to listen to the different international perspectives that are in the room here, that are online with us today, because in Germany, I think we are lagging behind when it comes to digital health. So we can learn from countries that are farther ahead of us. On the other hand, I think we also have some, how can I say, we've had our good moments in the last years when it comes to digitalization in the health system. For example, the DiGAs, the digital health applications that are kind of a success story, not only in Germany, but also worldwide. So I think it is really worthwhile discussing these different solutions and also discussing the possibilities, the opportunities that the use of health data and also through AI will give us today and also in the future. In the Bavarian Ministry of Healthcare and Prevention, we are convinced that the use of health data will be the key for better care, for better scientific results, and also for innovation. So I'm looking very much forward to discuss this with you in the later afternoon, and also to listen to the other panel discussions, to learn with you, from you, and to have a beautiful, exciting event here in Pfarrkirchen today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Münzer-Rieder. We do appreciate, as I mentioned already, your continuous support and the continuous support by our ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, we also enjoy collaboration already lasting for more than 2 years, and a lot of support by the World Health Organization, and most especially its European office in Copenhagen, and most especially the Data and Digital Health Unit that is led by a wonderful visionary, and I would say one of the motors of digitalization of healthcare and of digital transformation of healthcare at the level of the World Health Organization, our good friend, Dr. David Novillo Ortiz. Unfortunately, Dr. Novi Ortiz was unable to join us physically today, but he provided us with a few words of welcome on behalf of the World Health Organization, on behalf of its European office, and on behalf of the DDH unit, Data and Digital Health. It's almost like DigiHealth Day. We are DHD, they are DDH. Please take a listen.
Hello, colleagues. On behalf of the World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe, I would like to welcome you to this DigiHealth Day 2023. I would like to start thanking the Deggendorf Institute of Technology, and particular thanks to Professor Georgie Chaltikian for her strong partnership and friendship with the World Health Organization. Thank you so much, Georgie. So we have recently produced a regional digital health report that I hope that you are all aware of. Otherwise, this is perfect timing, and my colleague Kera Lusatif later today will be presenting the main findings. We found excellent data points and findings about the status of digital health in the European region. But I would like just to mention three. Only 19 countries of our 53 member states in the WHO European region have developed guidance in how to evaluate digital health interventions. We have also found that only 52% of our member states have developed digital health literacy strategies or policies. And finally, we found that only 35% of member states in our region have developed strategies or policies related to big data or advanced data analytics. So these are three critical red flags that we have in our region, and we're extremely proud that this event, during this activity, you will have the opportunity to discuss these findings among others, so we can help the European region to move in the right direction when it's about digital health. We wish you all the best and that you have very good discussions, and please do not hesitate to share the outcome with us. Thank you so much.
Right, we say big thank you to Dr. Novi Ortiz and to the entire team of Data Digital Health. Wonderful people, super motivated and motivating. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call your attention also to this QR code on screen. Please do scan it and use it in order to actively participate later this afternoon in our panel discussion. Am I right, Mr. Ettin? Please do that, yes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to welcome on the stage, albeit virtually, unfortunately, nonetheless, a very important person, the Executive Director of the International Society for Telemedicine and Health, a society and the leadership, with the leadership of which, and personally with Professor Junka Pwankom, I have the honor and pleasure to have collaborated for already 15 years now. A society which is also represented here by Professor Rajendra Gupta, who is a long-standing board member of the ISFTH, and we have enjoyed full support by this society throughout this event series. Once again, we're a proud member, institutional member of the ISFTH, and I'm absolutely proud to invite to say a few words of welcome my good friend and colleague, Professor Pwankom. Junka, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Georgi, and hi, Raj. It's really great to be here with you guys. So let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, again, depending where you are on this planet. It's really an honor and a privilege for me once more to say a few words, during this formal opening ceremony of DigiHealth Day, this 2023 edition. The International Society for Telemedicine and E-Health, as many of you would know, is a civil society organization composed of national professional associations, corporate members, institutional and individual members, with a footprint in a good 110 plus countries and territories worldwide. You will also know that well-justified global policy declarations promoting the development and use of telehealth and digital health technologies in general, and especially the coronavirus pandemic, have spurred greater adoption and spending on telehealth. Despite this, the evidence base on telehealth is much thinner than we'd like it to be. As part of our mission to facilitate the global dissemination of information and knowledge in the digital health space, and in fulfilling our role as a non-state actor in official relations with the World Health Organization, the ISFTH is engaged in two key activities, which are part of the WHO's 13th Global Program of Work. The first is identification of evidence of telehealth added value to guidance, which our colleague from WHO laid emphasis on, guidance provided by WHO to support countries with strategies, approaches, services, and interventions in their effort to define and deliver packages of services as part of their universal health coverage activities. And the second piece, scoping and reporting on the evidence for digital technologies in relation to addressing quality of care and community engagement as part of the WHO set of tools to help countries with their national quality and strategy development and implementation. In addition, three key initiatives with strong ISFTH commitment are the Global Digital Health Monitor, previously the Global Digital Health Index, the Acute Care Action Network recently formed by WHO, and our own standard bearer in terms of knowledge sharing initiatives, the Global Knowledge Commons. We're also this year putting on the second edition of the Society's own annual event, the Global Sustainable Telehealth Summit 2023, to be held in Silicon Valley next month. I have argued at past DigiHealth Day events and in other meetings that the key challenge we face in the digital health space is that of converting our collective knowledge into a global public good that is accessible to all, thus enabling each digital health actor to benefit from what others know. I have made pleas for the creation of technology pull forces in countries with a global knowledge commons serving to promote sharing of information and knowledge. That remains a priority for us, even though it's being implemented slowly by different organizations through information and technology hubs, but which remain isolated, siloed, and uncoordinated. The ISFTH extends to you all its significant opportunities to collaborate with global players in the digital health space through partnerships and memberships as individuals, organizations, and institutions, and engagement in our various working groups and communities. On behalf of the International Society, I wish you all a very successful event and invite you to join us in realizing the global knowledge commons for digital health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Juncker. This big round of applause is to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have two more representatives of the societies that we enjoyed collaborating with. And it is my great pleasure to welcome on stage Dr. Lars Lindskog, who is representing the European Federation for Medical Informatics. A few words of welcome, like.
Works. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. I'm representing European Federation of Medical Informatics here today, and I'm proud to be here, and I'm really enjoying to be a part of this event. And thanks to Georgie. This is the fourth time I'm here, Georgie informed me. This is the first time I'm here in reality, and it's much more fun than to be virtual. As an informatician, you always think of our role in the society is to see that things works for more. And we have an interest in the semantics. And I was a little bit impressed when I read about that we are in the heart of Europe. That this place is the heart of Europe. And the heart seems to be, from a biological point of view, the thing that makes us alive. Okay, it pumps it up, so to say. And I also like the word now that we're connecting digitalization to this. And my thinking is perhaps that, you know, that digitalization comes from digit, and digit is number. And numbers is something we understand in healthcare, lab results, other things. But the other side, digit in computers is 1 or 0 or on or off. And we like that also. Just no choices, just one direction. The other thing is digitus, that is the finger. And remember, it was when we connected the finger to the computer, it started to happen new things with our brains. And we really enjoyed that. And the third thing is digitalis. So we brought actually digitalis to serve our hearts. So from a healthcare perspective, I must say that digitalization of healthcare is a hard question for us. Lastly, I'm happy to have Georgie as an institutional member in EFMI. We have been discussing a little bit about arranging a special topic conference here together with him in the future, because we have been following the success of Digital Health Day. We have noted that the Digital Health Day has become a whole week. I have noted that it has more representation than we have in our STC conferences. So I'm a smart guy, so therefore I would like to work with him. And as an institutional member officer, I have a goal, and it's to bridging the gap between institutions and industry. Okay? Because if industry do something without the institution, it will fail. And institutions that think they can do something without the industry, implementation, scale up, and so will fail. So institutions and industry in square becomes I2. And what will we do then? You know, we will create for clinical staff some type of context. And that in square will become C2. So I2, C2 is also a way of thinking about the future. And when we think about listening to I2, C2, you start to realize that that is the way of robot talking. So it's a way of automatization. And I think what we have proven here from the Deggendorf Institute of Technology is that this is nothing that belongs just to one or one country or one domain or so on. AI seems to cross all borders all the time. And this is the place where I can see that we are from all countries. So with that, I greet you enormous success of this and coming health days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lars. Last but definitely not least, ladies and gentlemen, we have Stefan Schuck representing Deutsche Gesellschaft für Gesundheit Telematik, or the German eHealth Society, also to say a very brief couple of words of welcome. Stefan.
I promise so very brief. Thank you, Georgie. So welcome also from my side. Happy to be here and also impressed, like the previous speakers, for seeing where we are in Germany and seeing this lively audience, this international participation, the global cooperation. I'm really impressed. So we, the DGG, we are a relatively old organization in the field of digital health. Actually, we are one of the oldest in Germany. We have our 25th anniversary this year. Here we are now the new kid on the block. Luckily that we found now a way to collaborate. So we are now also a partner of this event. Notably, DGG is a national member of ISFTEH. So if you are from Germany and want to be easily to be a member of ISFTEH, sorry, you should become a member of DGG, because in our membership, the membership to the global organization is included. And I would be particularly happy if maybe we would gain some student members from this community. But something else, maybe everything has been said, but actually the slogan from the heart of Europe also inspired me, the global look. And I actually met two of your students, and in the meantime they're finished. One Werner Hussein, we collaborated for a longer time in the HIMSS Tiger Task Force, which is global. And when we authored a white paper in the end together and something like this, and I was trying to appoint a meeting, I was cautiously asking which time zone are you, and then she said, okay, here Germany, Pfarrkirchen. So that was one way to see how really you spread the word and the people. And just last week, I met Ashwanti in Brussels in the Label to Enable project, which is a relatively new project. And I know she's also doing other activities. So it's really impressive how you bring the new generation of digital health, let's say, from this spot, which is a little bit difficult to travel to, but you bring them to the world. So I'm really impressed, and I hope we can continue the collaboration lively in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, dear Stefan. Yes, indeed, our students, our graduates, they make us proud, and I'm sure it will only continue. Ladies and gentlemen, we are proceeding now immediately to our afternoon plenary, a wonderful session powered by really top people, thinkers, visionaries, luminaries in the field. And it is my greatest pleasure to invite to the stage now Professor Deepak Kalra, the head of Institute for Innovation through Health Data, and a prominent academic, professor at University College London, United Kingdom, visiting professor at University of Ghent, Belgium. I'm not gonna say really yes a lot of words about who is Deepak, because assumingly that everybody knows Deepak, but what is important to us, and what is most important perhaps to us, is that Professor Kalra has been a supporter of this study program, of this campus, and of this event series, basically since the foundation of this very campus, ladies and gentlemen, 8 years ago. And I'm super happy. It's been a greatest honor, Deepak, to have you with us per distance for so many years. We are so happy to have you finally reach Pfarrkirchen in person. And I'm also happy to present and to break the news that Professor Deepak Kalra is also on the advisory board of this institution, and he is the research scientific advisor of your Master of Digital Health. And of course, as you know, Deepak is the international invited chair of the DigiHealth Day series. Deepak, we're thrilled. Please take the stage. Thank you.
Well, I'm very honored to be occupying all of those exciting roles that Georgi has just explained. And I'll just before I kick off with the slides, just like to also give you my personal welcome, really to say that I'm thrilled to see you here, but really even more thrilled that Georgi has brought to us all his vision for the importance and value of digital health, his expertise and mastery of the subject, and his warmth, his generous spirit that means that everybody who encounters him wants to be connected with him. And I think there is a quality in him that is rather magical. And I hope you'll agree with me that that exists. And in a way, that's one of the reasons you're here. But another reason, of course, that you're here is because he has always kept us alive each year with the most exciting, most important topics. So please forgive me asking you just now to break the protocol and give him a round of applause for his success. And then I think I need to follow my job description and actually give you a presentation. So thank you very much for that. So unlocking the power of health data, let's just check that I can really do good things with this. Can I do good things with this? Oh. Wait a moment. Okay. Try again. Sorry? Oh, click it on. Oh, is there a power button? Sorry, I didn't realize that. My apologies, sir. I just assumed it was like any loaded gun, ready to roll. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. My apologies for not, hence my technological skill, as you can see. Okay, so let's kick straight in here. What's the problem? And this is actually a slide from 2016. And when thinking about whether to include it, I thought, well, it is rather old to be telling you what are the real contemporary issues facing healthcare. But you know, it's still true. So I thought I have to keep this slide going because nothing has been solved yet. And therefore, I'd like to remind you of where we are in healthcare, not in digital health. Where are health systems around the world? I guess I've got a bit of a bias towards Europe, but I think it's universally true. Legacy of the crisis. Well, in 2016, they had a different crisis in mind. But you know, we're still here today in the legacy of a new crisis. So in fact, the slide remains true, that we are struggling to have enough money to pay for the cost of delivering healthcare. And costs are going up, the money is less and less available. So healthcare really has to deliver on a financial basis, use its money most wisely, but in the context of us lot getting older, building up multiple chronic diseases, needing more and more complex, more and more expensive care. And yes, I'm in that guilty party now, I'm getting older. And also the fact that we are more and more concerned about equity, and that's a topic that's already arisen through the course of yesterday and today with regard to AI and bias, but actually equity of access to healthcare is something that's really important. The punchline is digital transformation is now vital, and we need to do that in an evidence-based way, and we need to harness the power of data to help us do it. So we need to use the learning from health data so that we can really improve the way that we collect and use health outcomes, so we target precious healthcare against the things that really deliver value to our patients. We need to help coordinate more and more complex, multi-organizational, multidisciplinary care. What can I say about telehealth and mobile health? That's clearly been the underpinning of this whole event. Prevention also has come up a few times. So we really have got to make sure we do a lot near to patient. But then at the population level, we've got to make sure that we orchestrate health systems to be most effective and most efficient. I don't think I need to tell you about the importance of public health. We're physically only in the same room, thanks to public health and thanks to vaccines that have allowed us to really learn as quickly as possible how to deal with a pandemic. But if I asked you today, did we have the information systems in place to allow us across Europe, across the world, to gather public health insights about COVID quickly, efficiently, and share them across countries in real time or near to real time? Did we have that? No, we still have a big repair job in terms of public health intelligence to do. And of course, yes, vaccines development was one success story, but we've got a lot more learning to do, a lot more innovation is needed. So health data is a critical underpinning to our future success. Digital health at times creates data, but at times it consumes data. So the data and digital health relationship is very closely knit. Just an example project, I thought I'd just mention it. This is an Innovative Medicines Initiative project, and it is trying to build up the ability to use real-world data in order to better understand the safety of medicines in pregnancy. Why? You cannot randomize women in pregnancy in a randomized control way. It's not ethical. And yet pregnant women do have other conditions, diabetes, asthma, epilepsy. So they do take medicines. And we know what happens to them and their baby because it's recorded. So the evidence that we need exists. We just need to harness it better. And that's what this project is seeking to do. It's one example of so many projects. And I apologize to some of you now. This presentation is pretty much a European one because that's my strength. But many of the lessons are probably applicable in all other parts of the world too. So just accept that limitation of my slides and my story. We have a lot of initiatives growing up around Europe. And yes, the German Medical Informatics Initiative's logo is there. We are seeking to learn from data at scale. And so it is exciting to see so many of these initiatives are coming together and trying to build up learning, whether it's for direct patient care, whether it's using research data or clinical trials data. That is an explosion occurring all over Europe. And one of the things that is quite important to understand is that what we are not doing is building one giant database somewhere like in the North Pole. That's not the way we're working by and large. We're using this concept of federated analysis, federated data. And because not everybody may know what I mean by that, I thought maybe a good thing to do at this point is actually just to have one diagram to explain what I mean by that. So if you imagine any organization that might have electronic health records, you know, that perhaps that's a hospital logo up there, a bit limited with my clip art, pretend it's a hospital, has an electronic health record. And what they do is they extract most of the data, not every single thing, pseudonymize it. That is, they kind of partially anonymize it, but they keep linkage keys so that they can keep updating the data. And that allows them to keep a data warehouse, a clinical data warehouse going as a research repository, as a learning repository, but keep it up to date. They could do it overnight in some very large hospitals, every month, every 3 months, but whatever is their frequency, they're keeping alive a research learning repository, but they keep it secure because only they know how to go back along the arrow to the EHR and know who every patient is. They can and should use it themselves. And if you caught me on another day on another topic, I would be complaining to you that far too many hospitals have a clinical data warehouse that they have invested in and underuse. They are not inquisitive enough. And I'm cross about it, but not for today. So there's some way of getting in and out of that. And a researcher builds a query using analytic tools and semantic tools to help them to compose a query, and they run that query. And what comes back to them is only aggregated data. There are privacy-enhancing techniques to make sure they can't run a whole bunch of queries and narrow down to one patient. So there are safeguards built into that whole process. And the researcher then only receives aggregated data, charts, tables, cross-tabulations. They don't get any patient-level data. That's the magic of the federated architecture, and it's growing and growing all over because it's such a good way of trying to maximize the learning and minimize the data protection risk. Not perfect, I'm not going to pretend it, but it's really going well. Now, that whole architecture and that whole approach and everything I've said in this presentation sits alongside a piece of legislation that every one of you in this room knows off by heart, I hope, the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And as a reminder, I've put these 6 principles up. I won't go through these 6 because I hope you look at them and say, oh, I know all those. You should. And if you don't know these 6, then memorize them at home tonight. But what I want to tell you about is pain points. So when you engage with the people who are on that mass of logos of big data and say, how do you find the process of constructing big data architectures, of being able to run federated queries, and how do you find the relationship of getting permission for those things? They find all sorts of pain points because the GDPR says that if you are, for example, going to use consent, consent has to be pretty precise. And of course, if you're doing a single piece of research, it can be precise. But if you're building a big resource, a future landscape of possible research queries and research topics, you cannot be precise because you don't know what will be the questions that people want to use the data for next year. So how precisely should it be specified to still be GDPR compliant? And of course, the other thing is you're meant to, if you're running a consent-based approach, you're meant to keep getting consent every time you have a new purpose. But that's not realistic when you're in a multi-million record ecosystem. So how, is it really needed every time? I'm saying this because researchers tell me when they engage with data protection officers, and I happen to be in one of those countries that's a bit stricter than the average in Europe, these are the pain points they tell me about. Data minimization. It was on the previous slide. I'm sure you memorized it. You're meant to only take the data you really need. But what about a big data resource? It has almost the opposite question. Not how minimal can my data be, but how maximal can I be in order to be future relevant to future research? Anonymized data is not in scope of the GDPR. Pseudonymized data is. But if the purpose of the pseudonym link is not to link back to the individual, but only to link new updates, could it not sit in a slightly more near to anonymized space? People vary as to how they feel about that. And what do we do when it's very hard to anonymize the data for some of these situations like rare diseases, genomics, images? The GDPR uses terms like adequate and proportionate, but that basically, unfortunately, means every data protection officer makes a subjective decision. That means if you're running multi-site studies, the goalposts are different across all of the sites you're working with. That makes it really difficult to run multi-site, multi-country data analyses. And then what are the obligations on a data user? How do they prove they've been a good citizen? That's not well articulated either. Is it possible that we could harmonize across Europe? You say, oh, but the GDPR is the unifying force across Europe. That is in theory. In practice, that is not how research feels today. Can we reunify Europe and maybe even go beyond Europe, such as transatlantic, so that everybody who needs to access data has a level playing field for the rules? So how might we go forward from here? I want to now move for a few slides and tell you about the topic that you've heard from a few speakers already this morning, the European health data space. What is it? Well, one thing is it is a hope to how we might build a unified European ecosystem on data. But what is it really? It is a multi-billion euro investment through the European Commission in joining the dots across member states to create 2 data superhighways. And I've got one slide on each superhighway, so I'll tell you about those. But when I say multi-billion, I do mean multi-billion, and health is one of a series of data spaces. They'll do agriculture, transport, energy, all sorts of things. But health is the first. We are the rare specialty to be chosen first by the European Commission. So it's very exciting for us. Superhighway number 1. Primary use of data for health and care and wellness. In other words, the beneficiary is the citizen, the patient, the individual, that they can have the benefit of their data being available wherever they are in Europe needing healthcare. But there are some rules associated with that. Electronic health record systems have to be certified. They've got to be able to read and write an exchange format that is being defined and already exists to some extent at a European level, and they must do some basic data quality checks. In other words, EHR system vendors have to raise their game to be part of the European ecosystem. Apps too are under the spotlight. At the moment, the proposal is voluntary labeling, but if they claim to be interoperable, they too have to be accountable for the exchange format capability. Member states have an obligation to enable every citizen, you and me, to enjoy pan-European data access to our data and the ability for us to authorize it to be seen by any healthcare professional that we may be seeing across Europe. And we, as individuals, must have a right to see and access our consolidated electronic health record, not a bunch of fragments scattered all over a country. So countries have to stitch it together, make it available, and allow us as individuals to write in it as well. Amazing patient empowerment. And then the reuse of data for research, for public health, for health systems improvement. Firstly, if a member state is going to publish data sets for pan-European use, they must be fair labeled. They must be quite robustly data quality labeled, and they must have a process for data management that includes assessing data for things like bias and representation in the population. In other words, European level data must not introduce additional biases and prejudices and inequities that might already exist. Health data access bodies have to be established, and they must only grant access to data to both to public and private organizations for permitted purposes. That's the next slide. Normally anonymized, and that they must only make the data available in secure ways, and they must publish information about how data has been used. So this may apply only to the European health data space, but I can tell you that the talk among the other data logos I've described is this is setting the new gold standard for all of us. So I hope it's not only applicable in the end to the European health data space, but it permeates pan-European. Now, you can only use data for permitted purposes. For interests, for things in the public health interest, you can see the list here of smaller scale bullets. I won't read all that, but these are the kind of areas in which the EHDS data may be used. Supporting, of course, public bodies like medicines regulators. They need intelligence so they can make safe decisions on behalf of all of us. Helping health and care learn and be more evidence-based in the way it orchestrates services, like I said earlier, education and teaching, scientific research, which is really not well elaborated. So it's a little bit of a vague space research, but I may come back to that. And then providing personalized care. But there's some red as well, red flags. You may never use European data for developing products or services that may harm individuals or harm societies. You cannot do things that might result in detrimental experiences for individuals. And here's an example, insurance. You cannot use the data to screw people in relation to insurance. No advertising, no marketing, for example, to health professionals. And of course, you can't say, I promise not to do that, and then give the data to somebody else who does the wrong thing. So both of those areas are part of helping to build public trust, which is really what I think is so important. But public trust is not easy to win in this kind of context. If I return to my spectrum of colors from before, what we see when we move from right to left is the public understand less about how their data is used. The actors who are dealing with the data are increasingly unfamiliar organizations. It takes sometimes quite a long time for the results of research to permeate back into results that people will experience. Like, for example, medicines development takes between 10 and 17 years. So it takes a long time. You've got to trust somebody with using your data and wait a very long time to know if your trust was well placed. And the results may not even be beneficial to me. My data might get used for the benefit of things that help other people but don't help me. And that whole landscape makes it really difficult for the public to be trusting and to engage with data use. And I know this has been a hot topic in this country recently. So we have a dilemma. And the dilemma is that we are trying always to uphold data protection legislation, which focuses on the safeguards to the individual and their data. But yet actually the research we want to undertake with data brings benefits that are more collective to society. So we have different subjects of these two topics. What makes it more difficult is actually when the public are, when it's explained to the public what the benefits are of using data. And those of you that heard Birgit this morning will know that Data Saves Lives, the initiative that she's been championing, does exactly that. Then they are generally, I can't say 100%, but a huge number of people are in favor of us learning those things from the data. And so we need to find a way to achieve a balance between these two things, safeguarding the data of the individual, but getting value from the data for everybody. And that is the dilemma we face today. And the EHDS is going to hit that square on, but actually every big data initiative is already facing that dilemma. Every data protection decision maker is struggling with that dilemma. And we have that reflected very nicely in European legislation. I've mentioned the GDPR, but there's also another European regulation or act called the Data Governance Act, which is a pathway whereby individuals can give a broader remit to not-for-profit third parties, data intermediaries, to make their data more widely available. And I think that in the end, the magic does not lie in the legislation. The magic is going to lie in us getting the balance between those two right by means of assurances. How do we prove that we are being good data citizens when we use data? I don't mean the citizens whose data is being used. I mean that we are actors who are using data well, wisely, in trustworthy ways. And that is really where I want to just spend the final few minutes of my presentation. I'm sort of watching the clock a little bit, Georgi. I think I'm all right. I've got my little stopwatch here. So how do we know, how do we as the public, how do decision makers know who to trust using data? Organizations that are trustworthy, whether they are academics or whether they are digital innovators, whether they're AI developers, pharma, how do they prove that they are trustworthy players to use data? And of course, everybody wants transparency. And so we've recently worked across stakeholders to produce a document that I want to quickly summarize for you and say that this is a document that we are now wanting to put out to wide public consultation. It's a proposal for something called a societal compact. You could almost see it as a kind of contract between an organization and society to say, how do I prove that I'm good? It's a voluntary agreement, but I think we would like to see that it's voluntary, but with some accountability. And therefore, if you break it, people know you've broken it. And the aim is to give a level of assurance. It's not the 100% solution, but it's a missing piece so far in our portfolio of safeguards. How does an organization promise to be good? And that's really what it is. We've worked across stakeholders, we've done some consultation, and it's now been published as a document that you can download. And what we really want to do is to gather wider feedback. Have we got this roughly right? It's not perfect, that's guaranteed, but is it roughly right? Is it heading in the right direction? And we'll be discussing this increasingly. Perhaps I'll just skip this slide because this is just telling you what's in it, which I'll tell you. First and foremost, any organization that wants to make secondary use of health data has to agree to 7 ethical principles. Number 1 is that they will only use the data for purposes that aim to directly result in or contribute to bringing benefits to society in terms of better opportunities for health and care. Secondly, they must never use data for purposes that are unethical, violate human rights, will disadvantage anyone, or will exclude anybody from any interest without bringing benefits to society. Now, thirdly, the organization must safeguard the privacy of every individual whose data is in their data sets. In other words, they've got to do things like use robust anonymization, use good information security safeguards. They must anonymize the data whenever they can. In other words, even if they are given access to pseudonymized data, the moment they've got what they want, the bit they've taken out, they must anonymize it. So within the organization, anonymized rather than pseudonymized data is circulated and reused. And they must really also make sure they never try to re-identify anyone. They must make sure that they respect any obligations that the data holder has placed on the data that they've been given access to. It's not like grab it and run away with it. It's like saying, if somebody has given you some additional terms, you can only use it for this purpose, not that purpose. You must respect that. The results should in some way get out. They may be published like an academic paper, but it might be that they are productized and that maybe the results are in some way used so that the individuals, so that people are not identified, but also if it's commercialized, that it must be a product or a service that's actually available to everybody on fair terms. What we don't want is people profiteering from the data. Yes, of course, they can have commercial successes, but they must make the results available in a free way. And they must aim to be as transparent as possible when using the data. And decision-making bodies also have an obligation to make sure that they enforce the principles and that transparency is also what they live up to. Now, going beyond that, we say, well, if you agree to these ethical principles, then you're kind of allowed inside the front door of the house. But then whenever you do undertake any actual data use, you have to adhere to a whole series of commitments. So you don't just say, I sign up to the ethical principles. That's universal. Whenever I use data, I will agree to the ethical principles. But every time I use data, I will sign an agreement that confirms all of these colors here. And I won't go through the list, but I mean, you can see that they're all about sticking to the rules, sticking to the purpose, make sure that there is a benefit, making sure also that you're transparent, that you have some way of telling people that you're using data. This is not detailed because it would sometimes commercial research needs a little bit of safeguarding, but you can give people a heading, a lay summary. There can be a lay summary that's made available. And once you've got results, make them available too, not the results, but the knowledge of what has been the end cut. Now, what we also have here is a more complicated diagram that I don't intend to talk to you about, but to say, how could this compact be put into practice? So what we also have is a more detailed section that says, well, how might this happen? If some entity is orchestrating this whole process, what's the workflow? How does it get signed? How does it get policed? What do you do when things go wrong? What are the escalation measures? That's also in here as part of the whole process. So what we really now want to do is to say to the universe, is this suitable? We want to find out if certain countries or initiatives are willing to even run a consultation exercise, maybe even pilot it, because we're not sure yet that we've got it right. So we really want feedback. You could just read it in theory, but maybe even there'll be some pilots. And one of the projects I'm involved in, a different IMI project, is thinking about. I won't promise that they've agreed because that would be cheating, but they haven't yet agreed, but they are thinking about whether to adopt it inside the project in order to see whether it might work or not. And so that's really where we're at. Now, what we don't know is a set of assurances like that, A, acceptable to, let's pick a pharma company, would they be willing to sign something like this? But then if they did, would the public see this as adding any value, or would they say this is just hot air and rubbish? It doesn't give us any more assurance. We're not sure. Our consultations have made us feel that it sits in the middle. Industry would sign it, the public would like it, but we really need much more input on that. So I'd like to ask you to invite you to download it if you wish, email me or a colleague of mine with whom I co-authored it. and tell us what you think. What I hope, though, as a punchline you've got from me, is that we see public trust as absolutely critical to the success of big data, the success of learning from data, and therefore the success of digital transformation, digital innovation, and better healthcare for all. Thanks very much.
Is 34,000 followers on LinkedIn, then you're not really into digital health. And we're happy to have Rajendra with us for the second year in a row, and hopefully for the rest. Rajendra Gupta.
It's working. Thank you.
I will be using these stairs because if I continue jumping off this scene, it's not so good.
So for me, it's the easiest thing to do is to speak after lunch. You know, I've seen a lot of research that the stomach is full and the head is empty. So, you know, I don't think you will have much to struggle with what I speak, but thank you, Georgie, for getting me for the second year. And I was seeing same dates last year I was here in Pfarrkirchen. So thanks for getting me into this. And what I'm going to do is talk about forces that are driving us to digital health, the fear of things that's stalling digital health, and of course the facts. I think we all have to go by facts. But before that, you know, I jump in. I have a favorite short 12-second video that you should watch. See, technology can't catch up with me. I bet you. That's why he calls me a visionary, which I'm not.
To mankind, it will be about health.
They can't even catch up with Tim Cook.
If you zoom out into the future and you look back and you ask the question, what was Apple's greatest contribution to mankind? It will be about health.
So why this is important is that, you know, if big tech think that the future of their companies is on health, for us in health, we see our future in tech. And if you don't, you're ceding your space to them. That's how I put it. Now I'll jump into Gordon Moore, the chairman emeritus of Intel. You know, it's not that we don't know about it, you know, like how technology was getting in. 65 years back, he told us the power of computing is doubling every 24 months. And we were still waiting that, you know, health can still be, you know, eminence-based, which is not true. If this was not enough, 40 years back, Buckminster Fuller told us. Very interesting way to look at it. Look at from 1400 to 1900. I will not say knowledge, I'll call it information. It doubled every 500 years. Then this doubling came down to 100, 50, 20, 10, 18. And finally, in 2020, we were almost doubling every 12 hours. In the area of ChatGPT, probably every hour. So, you know, this is the information overload that we are living with. But we as humans always wait for being pushed to the wall to act. So again, we had what I call the 3 C's of digital transformation. And what are these 3 C's? We keep getting hints year after year. You can see it. We got it in 2019. Ignored it. We got it in 2020. We started it. We have been pushed in 2022. What are these 3 C's? The first was quantum computing. So I think some of us would have just got this faded thinking it's not going to touch us. But what it said is the fastest supercomputer, what will take 10,000 years, it'll do in 200 seconds or less. I think that was a signal to us to think about what can healthcare do. We probably thought, let's quantum computing, let's not worry. But then finally we stuck with COVID. And I think here, doctors didn't want to see patients for the sake of them not contracting disease, and patients not wanting to go to a doctor for not wanting to contract this. So COVID was the next. But if this was not enough, generative AI. I can bet you that none of us have visualized the impact this will create on health. Unbelievable. We heard Elon Musk telling Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of UK, most of the jobs will be displaced. In fact, he used all the jobs will be displaced. Well, I have a different view, but I can't, be putting that here on this discussion. But the fact is that technology is invading healthcare end to end. Now, let me come to the forces that are shaping digital health. This is very important for us to understand. And what are the forces behind it? COVID-19, we saw, what it did to us. Impatient startups, big tech are also having, if you really carefully look at their strategy, their own venture funds. Intel Cap, every company is having their investment arm. They're looking at startups because they know that startups are very agile. They'll find solutions to the most pressing problems of our time. And so I believe it is startups that will disrupt digital health. So they're very impatient. They have no frameworks to worry about. They will just do it. Market share and share market. I think one part of my career was with Fortune companies. Very, very particular about what share of the market do we enjoy? Is our share market well? Are our investors making money? This will also push people to say, bring more technology, more profits, less people. Digitalization will also come in here because of that. Cost of care. I think everywhere you see that the cost of care is going up, outcomes have not. So I think there's a healthcare inflation that the world is worried about. And every government, I think those who work for the governments, or multilateral bodies is something that always worries us. Value-based care, accountable healthcare. So what do we get in return for the money we invest? What's the value? There is a big move towards this. In fact, in India also, we started bringing out the value-based care. There's a free flow of information. I'm going to walk you through what it means. But today, like earlier, a doctor would say, listen, I'm the doctor, let me speak. Today, a patient can tell a doctor also. In fact, I keep saying that earlier, in some parts of the world, a doctor will tell a patient, go buy the medicine and show me and then go. What a patient does now, when he walks or she walks out of a doctor's clinic, they Google and check, is this medicine actually meant for this problem? They validate the prescription of the doctor. So the things have changed. There's a free flow of information. Generative AI, I think I touched that. Influence of net. So this is what I want to, share you a video about. And of course, there are web-centric patients. I have a slide on that. So I'm going to play this video.
Life with diabetes can be a never-ending list of restrictions. No sweets, no roti, no rice. No drinks also. How can you enjoy life with all these limitations and restrictions?
I was diabetic till last year. I never had this boring menu.
Really? How did you overcome it?
All thanks to diabetes reversal plan, which helped me reverse my diabetes without depending on medications or strictly diets.
You want to kickstart your diabetes reversal journey and get rid of medicines and insulin to save your major organs. Please join Diabetes Reversal Program now.
You will learn which foods spike your sugar and which foods don't with a continuous glucose monitor. For example, you can find out if rice suits your body better or roti. Or if a gulab jam is better for you or a besan ka laddu. On top of that, you will have access to exceptional doctors with unlimited consultations with diabetes experts, with face-based technology to monitor your vitals and much more. Within 3 months, you'll see a drop in your sugar levels and your medication. And within 5 to 6 months, you will have reversed your diabetes, freeing yourself from medication.
There are more than 50,000 people just like you have reversed their diabetes without depending on medicines or strict diet.
So just imagine what happens to patients who watch this ads, and this guy is a big star in India. Would I believe him, or would I go to my doctor and say, look, I'll keep taking your medications? Because historically, we have always heard that diabetes can be managed, not cured. Here, the guys are saying no medications, no insulin. 50,000 people are already cured. And if you were to say, okay, this is India. By the way, these ads were taken from Instagram. You just clip them. Go to US. I have seen in USA Today full page ads on a medication saying, please ask your doctor today. So companies are actually going direct to patients. So my belief is that doctors who are still thinking, that I don't need to think about technology, people love me and they will still follow me. I think they're still living in the Stone Age for medicine. They need to use technology. They need to tell their patients first about what they need to use. In the morning sessions, I think we heard about DTX. I think if doctors convey to their patient about technology, they will be more trusted than someone landing up seeing this ad and changing their doctor, which is a harsh reality we are actually in the age of. Now, this is those who have read my book on digital health, this comes from that, but I'm going to quote this of how decisions about the physical world are taken in the virtual world. So 97% of the pregnant women will actually search the web, and based on the information they get, 83% will change the decision. That's the influence. That's why I say web-centric patients. They're all web-centric. If you talk about plastic surgeons and surgical procedures, 59 to 70% of the patients will actually search their providers here on the web. So they are in the virtual world. You cannot be outside that. And then 4 out of 10 people are influenced by social media and how they deal with their health, and how they choose their care provider is also decided here. This is the data. So all of us who are on the other side of being providers have to be where the patients are, and they are in the virtual world. That's the importance of technology in how people choose their health and how they manage it. So this is what my inference after seeing all this is, that medical information, medical knowledge is now getting democratized through technology. It is not just health information. Today, you can search about any medicine, about any treatment on the web, whether it's coming from an authentic source or not, doesn't matter. But people will search it. What happens with democratization? Power gets distributed. Till now, the power was with the doctor. He would say, listen to me, I'm doctor. Can the doctor say that now? Even if you say that, one guy is going to go walk out of the clinic and hospital, go and search and say, he was lying. I think this is the truth. So the distrust comes in when you are not using technology. You're letting people go search it for you. And with technology moves power. So I think technology is going to shift the power from providers to patients. That's the reality. And this is not new. I mean, so some of you will say that, the power shift is 10 years back, 5 years back. Actually, no, I've looked at historical data of hundreds of years. And this has happened across centuries with countries. So like countries which were predominantly into agriculture were strong. India was an agrarian country, had 27% of the GDP till 17th century, 1/4 of the world GDP. Then came the military power. Those who had strong military were the most powerful. You have United States, you had CIS, Russia, trade, China. So look at historically how the power shifts have happened from agriculture to military to trade, and now it's technology. That's why we are not surprised when every country is moving towards technology. So whether it is countries, whether it is companies, whether it's individual, you got to move with the power shifts. Technology has power. It will continue to wield power. That's the fact. Now, what's the fear? We talked about the forces. What's the fear? The fear of the unknown. Today, we can talk about AI in length, generative AI till death, but it's still unknown. Can we say with certainty that this is exactly where AI, generative AI will change things? Probably not. It's the fear of the unknown. No one knows to what extent technology will change healthcare, but it will. This is the future fear of powerful. I think I'll just show you. This is the fear of powerful. All of you have read this news. They said, stop AI experiments. Elon Musk, the founder of Microsoft, co-founder of Apple, Steve Wozniak, they signed. Till Elon launched his own AI. But this is the fear that they create. I mean, if these people send signatures out there saying, stop it, there's a fear of unknown they create. Go back to this way. And then is moving out of comfort zones. I think this is one of the biggest challenge of our time, is to give up what we have been doing for decades, for years, is to move out, stop that and give up. We are too much in our comfort zone. Someone has to shake up, or something like COVID comes, or generative AI, or Elon Musk speaking, every job will get replaced by AI. We have to wait for those kind of things. And then it's privacy, which is bona fide, genuine, but trust me, as much as you know you, social media or web also knows about you. Probably it knows much more about you because you don't analyze yourself. but every digital footprint gives them your psychological footprint also. So it's just the fact that, for the sake of saying, we will say that it's privacy. This is also one of the biggest fears that stops digitalization of health. Security, of course, let me give you an example. Like almost every country has faced data breach. My country faced few weeks back, 810 million data records of healthcare people got available on the dark web. It's available for sale. Now the question is, there is a genuine issue, but yes, this is the fear. Then this is one example I'll quote. Like I think 2020 in Jan, I was speaking at a big summit in Middle East. And there is a large hospital CEO. They run a couple of hospitals. They said, I don't think we'll do telemedicine. I said, why won't you do? He said, do you think I'm a fool? I invested tens of millions of dollars to build a hospital and I'll do telemedicine. People won't show up in my hospital. This is a factual discussion I'm telling you with a large group in UAE. 2 months down the line, there was COVID. It was no fun to just have millions of dollars invested in beds and hospitals. If you didn't have telemedicine, same patient would not come to you again. So I think this kind of thinking that people have, that for me, having just big, large facilities where I've invested is good enough, is not going to work. You need to supplement that with technology. Loss of patience. This is again a fear that people have, that if I'm doing a practice which is web enabled, where people can access me through the net, I'll lose patients. Well, you will lose. If you don't provide good care, you will lose. But if you're not there, you'll not even gain. I know of hospitals that have increased their coverage to 54 towns. They were only limited to one town during COVID, having put an app. So most of the hospitals have increased their business without adding beds. They provide a lot of care services using technology. So I think there's the other side of using technology as well. Of course, there is security of practice, future of medicine and all that, which kind of is true. I will not deny that. I'm, as I said in my approach, little radical, which could be futuristic, which could be demotivating. If you do not use technology, technology will not need you. I mean, I believe that very firmly. So I think all of you who have kind of enrolled in this course have kind of ensured your future, I would say, because the future lies in using technology and not staying away from it. So I think those who don't get into it and those organizations which don't get into using technology will definitely have an uncertain future in healthcare. And transparency, something that at some places doctors hate. I don't want everything to be out there captured, because that brings everything out in the open. I mean, we can figure out if there are malpractices. So technology also has the element of bringing transparency, which some people aren't very comfortable with. This is also an element of moving out of your comfort zones. Of course, this is something that I coined based on data. It's called 480 A's. The point here is 80% people still don't have access to healthcare when they need. This is globally. Sorry, did I press the wrong one? No. Then 80% have an issue with affordability. Whether you live in a developed country, developing country, or underdeveloped country, you will not be able to afford the care that you need. The problems are also you may not motivate them to be landing up in a hospital or a clinic or to a doctor. And that's why it brings me the fourth A. My belief is artificial intelligence can solve 80% of your problems. At least the issues of access, affordability, and acute care. So that's where this also comes in as one of the big facts. These are tectonic shifts, as I call it. I think there's and these are actual photos that I captured during my trips. Even people waiting for a train are all of them on their mobile phones. So there is a generational change. I think iPhone was launched on 9th of January 2007. By 2032, those who were born in that year would be practicing medicine. And I can assure you, they will not touch pen and paper. That's the iPhone generation. So you can be sure by 2032, there'll be no debate about EMRs. We'll not be talking why we are not using EMRs. How do we do that? How do we motivate? The iPhone generation will actually be out there. There is a technological change happening. In as much that we talk about AI, I heard one of the big champions who was at my meeting in UN said that this is the biggest invention and generative AI is the last invention of our times. I believe that we have not still scratched the surface. Like every 2 or 3 years, we get those reminders that we need to change. I think still the big thing is out there to come. So we'll have to wait for that. But the last thing is behavioral change. This is again the photograph I captured in one of my trips, that in the entire train, I couldn't find a single person not hooked to their cell phones. You can see every single person is on their cell phone, and repeatedly every day in my journey, I took photographs. And I was telling my colleagues, I think this is a great opportunity. Either they're frustrated with their daily lives or aren't they're hooked to the phone, or they find it so valuable they can't get out of it. Even while waiting to board the train, you can see when the train is coming, they're still on their phones. So I think there is a big behavioral change. We are the most connected and the most disconnected generation ever. We are so connected to our gadgets. We probably are disconnected to our surrounding, but I see as a great opportunity. It's a behavioral change thing. I mean, depends on what you want to leverage that for. And as I speak here, we are just doing a study with doctors. I think we completed with kind of 165 doctors. And this is what we got to know. How do they use web for the medical practice? So you can see there that they're using web search, 57% of them in the medical practice. 21% are using clinical decision support system and 15% are using ChatGPT. This is doctors in the medical practice. So while it appears to be futuristic, very new, not even a year old, adoption seems to be pretty good. I see a lot of courses, people are coming out and talking about saying ChatGPT for doctors. So I think people are getting to try this. I will not be surprised, and I say this at a forum like this where major countries are. I see some of the products like NLP and other CDS will eventually become redundant for some companies because generative AI will provide you. So companies will no longer be able to sell that as a subscription, saying I have a best CDS or I have a great NLP product where you speak and I transcribe. ChatGPT will do for you. I mean, whether it's ChatGPT, I mean, it's one company, I'm sure there are tens of companies that will come with generative AI products. So the very practice of medicine is going to undergo a change. Of course, this is actual data, again, back to my book, but it came from the MRCGP exam between question papers from 2012 to 17, where they gave the set to AI-backed robots and to human doctors. And the result was this: 81% of chatbots secured better than human doctors, which is 72%. So I think it is without debate that those who use technology will be better off than those who don't. And why should a consumer not trust that? I mean, I as a consumer would go and say, what kind of results do you see? And the moment the doctor says outside saying, I use the best of technology and my accuracy is 99.99%. Why should I go to someone else? A no-brainer. So I think technology is going to be there. It's going to be evidence around technology. So this is my message. Digital health is going to take over and AI is here to overtake us. That's what I will put. Not playing with words. This is the reality. So be with it rather than against it. And then lastly, that healthcare is the last sector to transform, but it will be the most comprehensive. It'll kind of leave every other sector behind. Every other sector behind. And you know, while I can tell you one thing, I think Dr. Georgi introduced me as the one who coined this quote: if you're not in digital health, you're not in health. I will say the another one, which is very important for you all, is that technology never changes anything. Is the people who are behind technology and the people who use technology change everything. So if I say I have generative AI, what does it do? Nothing. But if you use generative AI, you will change it. So just remember that it's the people behind technology who change. So are you the one who are going to be behind this technology using it? Then you are going to change healthcare. Technology alone will not change it. So don't think it is going to change on its own. And lastly, I'll leave a message which I discussed yesterday in the workshop. Alma-Ata happened 45 years back. The health ministers of the world got together in Alma-Ata in 1978 and said, we will provide health for all by 2000. We are 45 years after that. We're still not there. At least we can provide digital health for all by 2028 when we are 50 years of Alma-Ata. I think that is something that we all should champion with great leaders around here. That's what I leave you with the message. Let's make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajendra. Thank you for your inspirational talk, as always. Any questions from the audience?
If there are no questions, I thought you understood. If you have questions, I think you have not. And I don't know if I have answers for that. But yes, please shoot.
No questions of, okay.
Oh, we have the
Deepak.
guru.
Thank God I spoke before you. I don't think anybody would care if I spoke after that breathtaking presentation. But I want to ask a question about patients. You gave a very great explanation, really, of how health professionals need to embrace the technologies because their patients are already doing so. What about patient trust in clinicians using technologies that patients don't understand? Because it's true that digitally aware and awake patients will be playing with ChatGPT before they see me. But if I'm dealing with other patients who are not in the middle of an AI explosion themselves, and they see me using this black box solution, will they start to worry that the old professional they knew is being corrupted by tech?
So let me give you a scenario. So I'm an ophthalmic surgeon who has been promoting that I have been 40 years experienced in doing surgeries. And then Dr. Deepak Kalra opens a hospital and he says, I have robotic surgeons, 99.99% accurate. Would you go to a one with 40 years of experience or with a robot who would not commit probably any error given it's proven? So I think it's about the evidence around technology, how they use it. So let me give you the other examples. In 2007, I was at the inauguration of a 64-slice CT scan. I don't know whether it's 512-slice CT scan now in the market or probably more. Every time a company comes with an upgraded version, that means there is an adoption. That's why people look at it. So the moment you have better outcomes, I think doctors use technology and so do patients. And on the other side, what I'm doing is I run International Patients Union. Our job is to educate patients on technology. And I think this is the discussion we had about digital literacy, that we need to educate patients, because if they start asking for it, and this is where this is happening, you know, I'll tell you one more thing, that why digital health is going to move faster and probably in scale and scope grow. This is not the revolution driven by technologists or doctors. This is being driven by patients now. Of course, the growth is variegated, like in some parts, patients are well informed, some parts they're not. But this age is driven by patients. So I do not see why they will not keep asking. If someone benefits, they will go and tell 10 people, you know, I did a robotic surgery and I think this was done. I had less bleeding. I got cured. I got out in a week's time. Typically it takes 3 weeks. It spreads like wildfire. And with social media, some groups who have products will sell it faster. So I worry on that misinformation. I think that's something that we got to manage in this age. There's no discussion, but Dr. Georgie, I think at some stage you will start doing that discussion is, how do you manage misinformation? Like I showed you the ads of diabetes. They're saying, get rid of medications, no insulin. For heaven's sake, if you say 50,000 people got cured, you should be 50,001, you're going to fall for it. But the fact is, can you really do that? I'm worried on that part we should look at. But the fact is, most of the people who have access to Instagram, which mostly people do, will actually get carried by that. So I think on that side, I'm more worried on how do you get the right clinically proven information out. I think that's the bigger movement that we got to champion to save healthcare. Thank you. Yep.
Just a second, please. We have a mic.
Okay. So I was wondering, do you think there's room in the market for developers of smaller developers of language model technology and similar machine learning models? Because there's a lot of providers that are like technology companies and stuff like that base their service on ChatGPT and stuff like that. But I don't think there's a lot of competition and deliver and providers of alternate solutions. Like the ones that exist are mostly big companies, I think. So do you think there is room in the market for smaller, maybe more specialized tools or stuff like that?
So it's a very important question, and I thank you for asking this. So I have been a proponent of large number of small companies and small number of large companies, which is the scene today. You know, I did one time an analysis that the market cap of 5 big tech is equivalent to GDP of 175 nations, 177 nations. This is a very uneven influence on the governments and on the way they run the net. But as I said, it is the startups that will disrupt. We are still fixated on the NLPs and others, but I'm sure there is technology much beyond that. So in India, I'll tell you, we have a product called eSanjeevani. It's a government project. We have done 120 million consultations. So this is AI integrated in the version 2, where you speak in your language. A doctor in another state will hear in his language. He will speak in his language, you will hear in that. So I think innovations will increase. I would still not believe that what has come is even 1% of technology in healthcare. And this will come from startups only. As I said in the very beginning, big tech are too much focused at the parochial vision of growing their bottom line, market share, and they will have to depend on startups. Startup will disrupt. And I will see a lot of scope coming from startups, as long as they don't create valuation models for sale. My worry is on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajendra. I have very short last question to you. We should not be standing close to each other.
Technology tells me stay away from it. Yeah, go ahead.
How many people like Rajendra Gupta and others in this room does it take to make the vision of Digital Health for All 2028 a reality?
I think on that, I would say the people here in this room, they will recreate a different vision. I always say, even in the course I teach, there's a view that I have, there's a view that Deepak has. Deepak is also a faculty, but we both have a view that we have already developed. But based on what you hear from us, create your own view, which is the third view. So while I say it is 2028, you may have a better version, we'll support you. I mean, at the end of the day, we want everyone to have a digital ecosystem around themselves. That is what I'm doing under Project Create, which is using technology to create jobs for all. If you go to projectcreate.tech, I'm a believer of what different from what Elon Musk says. He says every job will be replaced by technology. I say that everyone will be able to have a job with technology. That's the difference. But I think everyone is needed, not me alone.
Wonderful answer. Thank you very much. Rajendra Gupta. Ladies and gentlemen, so we heard about the policies. We heard about the driving factors behind digital health. We know there's been a lot of policy development, a lot of harmonizing, a lot of streamlining the policies. And these wonderful gentlemen, these two, as I call them, gurus of digital health, Deepak and Rajendra, they have alone contributed so much to that it's hard to overemphasize. Now we're moving to the actual people who are creating this technology, guys. And despite us speaking about the tech giants, it is my belief, and I think that of many others, that the main providers and the main driving force on behalf of the industry, from the side of the industry in digital health, is going to be really startups and small and medium-sized enterprises in digital health. And we are so honored and so pleased to have here with us a person who is doing so much for helping these people establish their businesses, grow their businesses. And I'm thrilled to invite to this stage also longtime friend and supporter of us, Pilar Fernandez-Hermida, the founder of iExpand. Please, warm welcome. Yeah. They didn't give you the head mic?
Prefer the mic.
Okay, you can also take it out, by the way, if you prefer. Yep, wonderful. Technology
Good
works.
afternoon, everybody.
Sometimes.
Technology is working. Thanks so much, to Georgi and DHD for the opportunity to be here with you today. Coming after such heavy weeks of digital health, not sure whether to take it as a big honor or a very tall order, but here we are. I mean, here we are not only going to change the path of the discussion, So to speak, we're going to go from the path of data to the path to another liquidity, which is called money or commercialization. But we are also going to change gear because we are going to shift probably from what it is more specialized approaches to specific areas to something that is a generalist job, which is the commercialization in itself. It's where to go and why, with what, with whom, and how to make money, which is also a warning that it is going to be comprehensive so long as the clock allows. So my name. Okay, my name is Pilar, and well, you already seen my wall of fame, but if there is something that I think I got good over the years is to know what doesn't work when it comes, to taking solutions to market and adoption. And also, you kind of grow very thick skin because the whole job of a generalist, like in commercialization, is to fall and fall and fall. But the trick is to fall better every time till you don't fall anymore. So a few thoughts. I mean, I see a lot of students here, and I wanted to ask you, how many of you are founders or want to be founders in the future? Yeah. Yeah, okay. It's a trick question. How many of you are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs in the future? Ooh. What's the difference? The difference is that entrepreneurs create businesses. Founders start with a product and they can become entrepreneurs in the future, but it's not a nuance. It's actually a very important difference because at the end of the day, what do you create is a business. So commercialization is part of your task, not a nice to have once you have a product. Now I want you to close the eyes and not sleep. I know we are in the afternoon. What is the first word that comes to you when you think of innovation? Product, right? You think something shiny, a product, something that does something. How many of you have thought of business? And however, how you take a product to market, how you build a business around it, is innovation in itself. Think of McDonald's. It's not the best burger, but it's the best business model. So in many areas, commercialization trumps product. And in many cases, having a viable or building a viable commercial model takes more effort than building a product. We'll go into that. So this is a bit of it's called Salomon's paradox because your product solves a problem, or so we hope, yeah? But your problem as an entrepreneur is to build a viable business. And the bad side of healthcare, because sometimes it can be a bit, how is the word, perverse, is that you might have something that fixes somebody else's problem, but the market might not want to accept it. So we need to figure out a way around it. So guess what's my biggest problem today? How to actually give you some tips that maybe each of you can take home if you wish to, yeah? In such a short time. The good news is that the way to do that is called go to market, at least in my definition. I already said where to go and why, with what, with whom, how to make money. And the question would be, in the same way that some of you are prototyping the product, how many of you are prototyping the business? Hundreds of times. The good news as well is that we have decodified the black box of commercialization. But the bad news is that there is no way we're going to go through all that. It's a whole program. Yeah, it's a comprehensive generalist approach. So in order to give you something that might be of benefit for you, I thought I would address here the two biggest flops or crashes that I see in hundreds, after working with hundreds of startups. Is the biggest questions are you needed in that format, that market, that shape, etc.? We'll see it's not always the case. And if you are needed, how can you make money? or build a viable business that attracts money. So in the first part of this presentation, we are going to look at where you go, why, and with what are you needed. And in order to know where you go, I mean, it's extremely important that you build basically, you have to zoom out from the market. The irony is that to enter a market, you need to first zoom out away from the market and just look what moves around. This is a quote from somebody that's very famous, no longer with us. Guess who that was? It was a person that normally says is a product guy. It was Steve Jobs. And he thought it's crazy that people don't get on top of the building and explore the pathways, you know, what moves, what doesn't move, and then plan your entry in the market. So there is some knowledge, you know, to share about, because only with this perspective of zooming out, you can build perspective, you can start making connections. Because unless you're anti-Copernican, the market does not circulate around your product. Some people, in some exceptions, it could be, or it might look like, but you are part of a market and you have to have a multi-location strategy. And the way you do it, the way you build that ladder or that lift to get you on top of the building is through research. And in a field like healthcare and biotech that's so evidence-based, I'm always very puzzled how little evidence people put in finding how to make a business after the product. This is some of the building blocks. You can make I'm not going to go through all of that, but I'm going to give you, for each of the building blocks, the main flops, the main crashes to avoid, yeah, or the risk. In market analysis, the biggest thing that we see, people sometimes, many times, they choose the wrong market. They go where they want to go instead of going where they should go. Going into, I mean, we saw the previous presentation talking about the market trends. A surfer becomes very good, not by surfing. I mean, you need to learn the technique, but it's not choosing, it's by choosing the right waves to run, you know, to ride, yes? And here is like, you need to analyze and develop situational awareness of what's moving in your market, hypothesis market, yeah? There are waves that could be opportunities, but others that could be barriers, because you could argue that regulation, depending on how you play it, can be an opportunity, can be a threat, or can be a moat. Sometimes you see the industry is very in favor of regulating things because this is the way to prevent the startups to come in some fields. I think that's also something that you need to understand. So you have to know how to navigate your own market, your own segment. Your hashtags, very important. We know hashtags for everything, but do you know the hashtag for your business, what really matters, and what it means for you, for your, you know, what you're trying to do? And then, of course, identify the main barriers. Some of the companies will have very specific barriers for their business, but there are some barriers that are faced by everybody, basically. My favorite, my top of the flops, or top of the barriers, depending how you see, is these ones that you see here. And one of my favorite, I mean, we have discussed a lot about data and different aspects, but access to quality data seems very close to my heart. Why? Because are we going to discriminate by algorithm level to people? Because at the moment in areas like genomics, the data is very much based on European descent people, yeah? And this data, the worrying part is that I think here is what 86%, but it's increasing from 5 years before this chart was done. So we have to also look at what is good data and for whom. So the equity, we know what Deepa was mentioning, and the data colonization that it was mentioned before, you know, by Miklas. So we had the big picture view, and then we might perceive, okay, looking at the waves, I'm going to head for a specific health systems. Health systems has its own dynamics. Think of rivers, yeah? And this is where I'm going now to focus a bit on Europe, because the question is, are you guys playing roulette with your business? we sometimes get the feeling that people choose the market as well in a very opportunistic way, like because the language, because of that. But you need also to figure out, why you are going to that market, if there is really the right place for you to be. Because gambling your business is not a good thing. And the coordinates to navigate, this is a very complex area, of course. Just look at the provision. Who provides, is public, is private, whatever. Who funds and how they fund it. Follow the money always. And the governance, because you could have a country that is funded publicly, but is decentralized in the execution. Other countries that are more centralized, and you need to follow those rivers that lead for you to be reimbursed or pay for your solution. In here, what do you see? You follow those coordinates. People might see one market, a few, believe me. People might see a very disjoint, different market, every country they are on, which is very confusing. I see two systems, two clusters of behavior. One where basically is the NHS model, the beverage, where it will be more of a show me the contract when you are placing your offer to them. And the other one, which is show me the code, because it's insurance-led. So it does make a difference. So how you actually do that. So follow those clusters. Big view, river view, choose something and, apply, a bit of triage. Yeah? And it matters a lot because it means that some markets that might seem more complicated are actually less complicated for you to actually position the solution. Yeah. So big picture view, river view, health systems. Now, we are going to take one part of that and put it under the Petri dish, because now we want to see who moves in the market, which is an area where people also tiptoe around, they don't do it properly. Question, just to check if you guys are following. Imagine I'm going to this jungle trip. How many people would like to come with me to that trip? That's very good. I think we need to, yes, thank you. You go there. Okay. Would you still come with me to this trip if you knew this Bengaluru tiger, very hungry waiting for you? How many would come with me? Oh my gosh, we're like adventurous. But you would agree that you would probably use different vehicles, rangers, you'd be in the shoulders of somebody, you have some protection. And however, most of the people just go to the market like land and, what's the expression that some people, land and expand, land can go there. No, this guy will not eat you, but they will eat your market probably, so you will die of starvation. So analyze a bit before you go, because there might not be room for you to go there, and you might be missing on somewhere where you are more than welcome. Yeah? So that's the thing, is wrong market positioning. Don't do that in vacuum. Don't be anti-Copernican. Please look at the market and choose accordingly. And to do that, not very good with technology sometimes, but I still use an old compass. I make an analog compass and I call it the pathway compass. Take that piece where you think you operate, follow the clinician, follow the patient, and build your pathway. This is a pathway for virtual care pathway. Build on that. And once you do that, you analyze everything that moves and breathes there. Potential partners, potential customers, potential competitors. That's how you do the stakeholder analysis. And the more balls you have, the better for you commercially. No pun intended. So basically do that, because then you will then label in that your customers. And this is another flaw that we find very often in healthcare, because the customer is not often the end user. It can be a different entity. So define who is your customer, and the customer is the one who will pay you. So you have to have different value propositions and approaches for that. And then about competition, which is a favorite for me, like you saw the tiger before, you need to do deeper competition analysis. And the competition analysis is not always focused on I am better, bigger, what have you, faster, cheaper. Is where are you different from competition? And there's a reason for that. Look for differentiation from that. And what makes a competitor, they take your customer's wallet. It doesn't have to be similar to you. If you identify that, then you will see other competition forces that are bigger than having a similar company to you in the market. Namely, a competitor's partners, for example, you have to take that into account, but you have legacy, replacement solutions, and new entrants. And let's look at some of typologies of competitors. First and foremost, I always love when people talk about disruption. Legacy still sounds like this is a very, if this was a song, it would be a slow mode and hi-fi. And the legacy you cannot get rid of. So don't disrupt, get inside like a nice virus and disrupt, change things from inside, because in a lot of industry will be a slow process. And because the status quo and legacy is your biggest competitor. So be wary of that and then try to integrate. New entrants, it was mentioned. I cannot highlight how strong that could be for you. Not necessarily because they are going to succeed or not succeed. I mean, there is like they're meeting, very spot. Because new entrants, especially the big tech, they have a very, very bad habit of price dumping. So even if you are better, if they offer something for free, that's a very difficult negotiation to have in the market, yeah? And finally, what do you think? I mean, who's the deadliest cat here in this picture? The cute one. It's an African cat. It has more killing success than the lion. Sometimes your competitor will become your customer. What happens when a government like the NHS is talking about federated data platform that they will build with other third parties, blah, 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 and everybody, yes, 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 no. If you are not in one of these consortiums, you are out, out, out. Yes, assuming that it will be implemented correctly. So follow who your government, who your target customer is working with. Follow something called the PPPs, public and private partnerships, because a lot of things will happen there and you might need to get on board. Otherwise you are out, yeah? So again, I didn't talk about apples with apples competitors. I talk about the most obvious competitors that you will find. Next, it comes to product readiness. And here the biggest flop is the product does not translate well into the market. So before you go further, I mean, it's like you have a use case for that. It's like, how do you compare? What do you need to drop, develop, and it's going to work before you even finalize the USP and the MVP in the project? Yeah? And here is where we have to go from selfie mode. This was a very famous selfie, a legal case, to mirror more. And as the mirror, which is the market, in case you don't know by now, is how do you compare? Do you have a license to play? What else do you need to develop on drop? Is that market worth it for you? And I can guarantee you, most of the companies we see, they choose the wrong market with the wrong dynamics, with the wrong everything, and it's not a viable market. And it's very difficult to convince people to actually tell them that, that maybe they have to reshape, how they approach it. And why do you need this market versus product approach? How many apps, medical apps, are in the market? Anybody knows? Any other takers? Got 60,000 here. This is like a 2022. Okay, the number I got from IQVIA, that's me, 350,000. So when I say to people that 50% of the solutions are not necessary, I think probably the number is higher because not many of them or most of them are not making any money or are viable. So you need to find out if you are needed in the first place. And maybe it's the way you go to market. Like the gentleman was presenting, can we work with big industry for language model? There are other ways to go to market that are more viable, yeah? But this is the time to do it before it's too late, before you spend all the money on regulation or what have you, and you are in the wrong market, because then you are trapped. So here is some things. We are not going to talk all about this, but one area that people really underestimate a lot is localization. They think it's a language thing, like I translate, but for instance, a German company, Agder Health is a system checker. They translated their solution into Swahili. And they had to translate everything from finding new ways to say something in Swahili because most doctors were taught in English, to actually changing even the protocols, because if you develop a fever in Tanzania, it could be malaria, but in Germany, it should be flu. So this is very, very tough job. So before you go in saying we're going to be the #1 direct patient solution here and there, think about how you're going to be able to afford all that. And it's many more than that. But I'm going to offer you some tips because I thought that's a good one. Well, some tips and traps in this case, because another thing, we talk a lot about regulation, and we're talking a lot about European directives, etc. But so that you know that depending on which field you are working, it could well be that the country will enact stricter regulations to a specific product type. And one example is DNA kits, yeah? In France, if you sell a health, I think this was discussion, but I don't think it has been approved. If you sell a DNA kit for health reasons, not for ancestors, you can actually pay a fine of 3,900 euros. So be wary, that's not a viable market if you go in that model, but there are other ways around. But also, on a positive way, you could do like Zipline did, in that they launched, the drone delivery for medication first in Africa, in Rwanda, Ghana, etc. And then now they're in the US market. And they did a very good service there. So look for, don't do tourism, do not harm. But there is also ways, that you can launch your solution maybe outside of your normal environment. And finally, do not fall for the wrong pilot. I don't like pilots very much. You have to do it when it's something complex and workflows, but make them short, make them conditional, because a lot of, this is a comfort zone. Oh, I'm doing a pilot, I'm fine. This is my commercial strategy. No. You want comfort, buy a sofa. Yeah, but that's not. So, and then, quoting, Birgit this morning, think about the patient. I mean, I could talk about this, for the whole presentation, but how does the technology make people feel? Because it's a broken mirrors thing. It's like, why are people called users? We should call them beneficiaries. And actually, we should co-create. And instead of coming up with a lot of very fancy things of how to do co-creation or patient-centric thing, ask them, follow them, stalk them, and then figure out how to help them in their own ways. It's very easy and it's very difficult because, of course, it requires some interaction. Because at the moment, the beneficiary does have agency, and they're giving us, excuse the language, like a bit of the digital finger in the sense that they don't use our applications. And why is that? We have to look at ourselves, yeah? Because at the end of the day, what good looks like is adoption. And adoption only happens when there is sense and sensibility, when we launch, the solutions about human and being, perceived as a benefit for them. And finally, pricing as well. I mean, I do pricing normally in these states because some markets are not viable. And if you just do a bit of due diligence at the beginning, you already know that you might not have something for that specific market. So if your product was a bag, what's the price tag? Would you be haute couture? Would you be mass market? And how does that translate into that market? Because it could well be that it's not so state of the art there. It could be that's commoditized. It could be the opposite. So you have to figure, how that translates and if it's worth the journey. Last but not least in this section is no killer USP, or meaning a USP that kills your business. And the thing is, I mean, everybody thinks, what's the differentiations? Yeah, 5 minutes, okay. So I will, okay. And the thing is like, the superpower could be not that you are so different, but you do something much better as well. So think about this. So I will run very quickly. In terms of market positioning, think about what makes you unique and what's in it for the customer, yeah? And then the VPA statements that you could use with these ones. So, but something that's very, very important, and I will finish this section here, is saying no is probably the hardest thing in innovation. And then you have to trim, I mean, for those platforms, trim it. Give us a use case. Start by something. Amazon started selling books, so trim it and narrow it again. If you are very similar, how can you stick out? Are you better or are you different? And then finally, you are too much of a moonshot, anchor on planet Earth to something that people might understand, or bring some adjacencies as a sample. But here's the biggest question to wonder yourself is like, if I would just do as a concluding, because I don't have more time, is define yourself clearly where you are. And I'll give you some examples. Are you a tech enabler or are you tech-enabled therapy? Are you a product? Are you a platform? Are you a service? Yes. How are you going to operate? And that will make, your room, in the thing. And then finally, it's like, remember that the USP sets the tone. So avoid overdoing the MVP if you don't have a clear way to market, because it's too late for many companies to go backwards. And that's, I think, because I'm done with the time, but anyway, the business model I will leave for another sessions, but I just wanted to say that commercialization is not only about making money, it's about providing value, making money in the process that's just absolutely necessary, to make viable business. But at the end of the day, in these sustainability discussions that we're talking about, it's about waste management. Because every company that goes down is not only losing money to customers, but it's also basically a wasted opportunity to impact somebody else. So be mindful of that, and happy journey, to commercialization. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pilar. So, any questions to Pilar? Yes, Simon, please.
Show you some.
So thank you very much for the nice presentation and for the insights. I have a question that relates to one of the last points of your presentation, and it's also an advice I was given from many successful founders. It's to not to spend too much time in the development phase and try to sell, but we are also talking at the same time about a market that is highly prejudiced towards digital solutions and changes. So how are you successful? How would you be successful with an MVP, a minimum viable product? Or do you need like a full-fledged product to even go to the market, go to the doctors and try to market and sell this solution to them?
This is a good question, and it's a product-based question. I look at the market in a very different way. I mean, look, 10 years ago, if you launch a product, because it was very expensive to launch a product because cloud became, so mainstream, of course, there was a market waiting for you. You had this kind of competitive advantage of being the first ones or in the first. 10 years later, there's so many products that are so similar that it is critical that at the beginning, when you have an idea, don't only look for the minimum viable product, look for the minimum viable business. In fact, I would say in retrospect, I would look first for the money flows, the minimum viable business, and then I would build something for that segment. Because otherwise it's going to be very difficult to succeed in the market. Now, having said so, because I didn't have time to talk about this, there is also a very clonic way of looking at business model at the moment. You think B2C or then B2B, meaning employers or maybe a hospital, But there is a lot of other ways to go to market. Dozens of ways. Yes? But that's why you need a commercial expertise in-house as well to do that, because not all B2B models make money, B2B outside of employers or things like that, yeah? But most of the models that we see that are more financially stable are B2B. So can you piggyback on something? Can you join a platform? There's a lot of things that you can do, yeah? But anyway, thank you for the question.
Thank you. Any other question to Pilar? If not, then we will be moving forward. But Pilar is here with us, and specifically to our students, we're very happy that Pilar is also, just like pretty much everybody in this room, I mean, from the speakers, engaged in teaching at DIT. And we hope that we're going to have you more and more often. And of course, everybody who is thinking about the business, just tonight, grab Pilar, talk to her. She is amazing, as you already know. Big round of applause to Pilar. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're running a little bit again behind our schedule. It looks like Deutsche Bahn is indeed influencing everything that is happening in this nation, because we used to be more precise, you know, before, but now it's kind of. However, that said, yeah, we're no longer in a hurry too much, because well, we have a few hours in front of us, so I think these 15 minutes of delay are definitely worth it, if you agree with me. So we had an enlightening talk by Deepak. We had an inspiring talk by Rajendra. We had an encouraging talk by Pilar. And now we're going to have a glimpse a little bit, probably further into the future. And I'm happy and honored that Mr. Philippe Gerville joining us today, despite or you know, against all odds, in person, coming here in Pfarrkirchen directly from the Emirates, from Dubai, where he attended another major meeting. I do hope that everybody in this room is also following Philippe on social media. He is influencer, he is a visionary, he is a futurist and futurologist, and he calls himself also a humanist. So he's very much into AI, he's very much into Gen AI, but he's constantly reminding us that unless we have artificial intelligence coupled with natural empathy and with human touch, it might be really getting dangerous. Big round of applause to Philippe Gerville.
Now I have. Thank you very much for the kind words and for the invitation. You missed one step in my trip. I was in Dubai last week, but I stopped 2 days ago in France to deliver TEDx. So thank you very much, you know, and I'm happy, you know, to have to give this presentation. I'm also always very happy. Okay. Still on the first slide, you see, so it's okay. So I'm also very happy. I'm always enjoy to give a speech, you know, to younger people. As I mentioned, you know, my TEDx was at the École de Management of Lyon. I'm at that age where I'm happy to give back to the community. So let's start. You know, I said, going to talk quickly about healthcare in the metaverse. So the first thing I would like to highlight here, when we talk metaverse, everybody thinks, you know, VR glasses and all that. Of course, there's some stuff you do with VR glasses, but for me, if I talk healthcare metaverse, you cannot ask all the patients to have VR glasses. So there will also be a healthcare metaverse without glasses. But for some treatment, you know, where I think the VR glasses become even a medical device, of course, you will need VR glasses. So let's start just, I'm unfortunately not going to explain everything in terms of the metaverse. I think today, as Rajendra mentioned, you know, things are going so quickly that my every presentation is a different one. I cannot use the previous presentation because in between something happened, so you have to be updated. So usually I explain all the stuff, different things about metaverse, but today my key point was to show you some existing stuff. That metaverse is not just talking, it starts to hit the ground and there are solutions out there already on the market. But still, what you can do in the metaverse, you know, these are all these things, you know, fitness and well-being, which is becoming I think an important topic, you know, for the, I would say for the younger generation, we talk about wellness, fitness, well-being, preventive care. So these are things which are becoming more and more important. Then, as I mentioned already, fitness, so virtual gym and sports. So you know that you can do in your virtual world the sport with somebody at the other end of the world, you know, so that you can really have a team or whatever playing around, and you're not alone in your own world. Virtual relaxation, so that includes, you know, relaxation, yoga, meditation, all this stuff. And then, of course, then in that example, VR glasses can help, you know, to be have a more immersive experience. Telemedicine, I think we talked a few times, you know, about telemedicine that was boosted a lot, you know, during COVID. Mental health is a big topic, you know, so mental health. And I think what is also important, what we have to understand today, when we talk metaverse, I still think we talk too much about doing what we have in the physical world, doing in the virtual world. I'm also looking for the use cases, things that you cannot do in the physical world that you might do in the virtual world. And why I say that about mental health? Mental health is a challenge. Quite often the patient is the last one to accept that he has an issue, or is not always open to talk with everybody about the issues. You know, burnout, depression, all these things. Quite often the environment around the person is telling you in burnout, you're in depression. But the person themselves, they say, no, you don't understand, you know, you. And I took by experience, because I had that, my wife telling that you're in burnout, and I said, you don't understand, you know, that's the world today is like that, is stress, is work, you don't understand. Then I think what is important, and I will go more deep in that one, you know, the whole medical procedures, surgeries, and medical training and education. So my issue today, why I talk about stuff like that, is I want to remove whatever I can from the HCPs, so doctors, nurses, to have more human time. So we are back to the point about human. I'm a big fan of technology, but the technology has to serve the human. And today, I'm sorry to say that, but today the GPs are robots. You know, the average GP visit in the UK is 10 minutes. In Germany is 7 minutes. Switzerland is 7 minutes. And all the countries around is something like that. And if I ask Rajendra, in India, you have 300 patients one day. So who are the robots? Is AI the robot, or are our doctors today the robots? And out of that time, only 30% is with the patient. 70% is paperwork, data entry. If you go to the doctor, you will notice that they are more in front of the screen than looking into your eyes. And I'm fighting for that. My focus is remove a part of this 70% so that the doctor becomes again human and has this empathy and this discussion with the patient. And as I said, there are many others, you know, we could talk about, but medical training and education. So these are just a few examples. And what I think, what is important is the two last words here. Risk-free. So you can train in a virtual world very close to reality, but you're not going to kill anybody. There is no risk that you hurt somebody, that you should do something bad. And it's still very realistic, you know, in terms of training and all that. Now let's move to the next one. So some people may not know, but Professor Shafi Ahmed, Georgi knows, you know, it's a very close friend of mine. He's the most watched surgeon in the world. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2020. And I think now the best probably to say, you know, Professor Shafi Ahmed did all this stuff, VR, surgeries, training medical students and all that, even before we talked about the metaverse. So if you can please play the video. We have timed this advertising before, so YouTube advertising. So should you talk about data or? Nein, danke. See some advertising at the end, you see some. So just imagine, what that means if you talk about maybe 14,000 or even the 55,000 people attending, in 142 countries. What that would mean in classroom training. We talk about years. You would have to travel around the world to reach the same number of students in so many countries. So that's what this kind of technology can bring, and really, I think there is no way, that we should not use that. So now let's move to AI Medis Avalon Metaverse. So why I'm saying that Professor Shafi Ahmed was also the first Chief Medical Metaverse Officer for AI Medis. So AI Medis is actually a Dutch company where I'm also an advisor, but was founded by two co-founders that were for 12 years medical doctor in Germany. I'm not going to challenge, the table why they opened a company in Netherlands, and one of the co-founders is living there, the other is living in Dubai. I didn't say that, but I'm originally French. We have the same issues, good ideas, people start and then they go to other countries because it's not always easy to succeed in your own country. So AI Medis is one of the first company that already had really some, metaverse and some examples. And I'm going just to give you a glimpse of what that means, in terms of, so the first environment that it is United, is the Emirates. And the challenge when I met them the first time in January, before I was an advisor for them, is they have developed everything themselves. And I said, look, I'm a patient. I don't want to enter 100 different metaverse, so why do you not come back to the basis of metaverse where you also selling lands and all that? So you develop, but you invite other people to buy a building or to build a building on your metaverse. And then you can also share the cost of developing the metaverse. And that's what they did now. So you will see in another short video, they have the Arab Health Forum, there is a Professor Shafi Ahmed auditorium where people can go in, have some sessions, some education and all that. So if you can play the next video. Now we're finding some IT issues, you see. Thank you. Again, some advertising. I'm getting no money for that, sorry. today, you know, how realistic it is, you know, some of you may be gamers. All the companies or hospital name that you see are not fake ones. Huh? These are really, they have a contract, you know, we are building them. Or even actually to big pharma companies that also have their own building environment. Or sometimes a closed building where only the employees can have access, you know. We can go back to the presentation, please. Thank you. Then the second environment I did was more Northern Australia. So the key focus here was pediatric mental health. So you will see a complete different environment. There is a startup. I think Pilar, you may know Jaroslav from Australia. We met him in Malta. So there's a startup called WA, who basically is about pediatric mental health, and they are already have their environment there. So if you can play the next video, please. And just to say, I'm sorry to say that I'm not especially a gamer, you know, but it's coming, all these environments and all that is immersive technology, everything is coming from the game. And then of course you can do, it's like different chapters of your game, you know, whatever you can. So we have the UAE, we will have now Australia. I'm sorry that I'm challenging the IT colleague. Not sure, no. Yeah, it's different, you see. It's the same logo at the beginning. Completely different environment, like a different country. And talk to make money, you see. Just to see today the technology, how realistic it can be. Now, the field you mentioned, you know, start from Australia. Mental health is a big issue, but pediatric mental health is even maybe a completely different topic. And of course, when you go to this kind of environment, gaming and all that for kids, you know, there are many applications which are close to gaming for kids. Is a really real organization that have signed the contract, and I think you are giving the environment for them. They have some for sale, some for bid, some for sale. I think that stuff, I think that's just show you nice pictures and all that, you can get it, but the point is you can access worldwide and get the best doctors or experts at the other end of the world. I think we had some discussion with some people, you know, you don't always have access to the best doctors in your village or whatever. So here you can, you know, have interaction experts at the other end of the world. Sometimes, you know, sorry to show, you know, Australia. I think it's very important for the people to also, it's, you know, maybe back to what Pilar said before, localization. You know, people identify themselves with their country, with their. So thank you. You can go back to the. Okay, so for question of time, I'm not going to do Japan. There's also a video for Japan, you know, but I still think we have to move to the next one. So just talking about pharmacy in the metaverse. I was in Australia in September at the World Congress for Pharmacists to talk also about pharmacy in the metaverse. And that I like those kind of challenges, you know, because I think pharmacy is a very physical world, you know. So what are they doing in the metaverse? But I was not just showing PowerPoint. You know, there is a use case. There's already, you know, the first pharmacy in the metaverse was done in Sweden in 2022. So it's not, they didn't listen to me. They didn't wait for me, you know, they already had it. And again, it's about a lot of also education. I think maybe back to what Birgit said, we talk about education HCPs, but we have to educate patient as well. You know, so where can the patient get all the information, pharmacy and all that? So it's the same. So that's an example in Sweden. And then let's move to the last topic to finish with that, AI doctors. So I'm not going to tell the whole story, you know, but had an incredible experience in Dubai in April. And I met a gynecologist, obstetrician, you know, top surgeon in the world, one of the only 100 doing one specific surgery. And I spent 3 hours with him. I was thinking we're going to talk about medical education, and I spent 3 hours with him talking about ChatGPT. Because before being a surgeon, he was an IT guy, Cisco certified, and after the surgeries, the guy is programming himself until 2 o'clock in the morning. And what he mainly did, he reprogrammed ChatGPT the other way around, so that ChatGPT is asking questions like a doctor would ask questions. And he has loaded more than 283,000 publications about women's health, 47,000 validated algorithms validated by the Royal College of Surgeons in the UK. And this is the result. So we have the first metaverse doctor for women's health. So let's play that video to finish. So that was quicker, you see. No advertising. Oh, no, I was too fixing no advertising. Yeah, that's YouTube. See? That's YouTube. You have to accept. Yeah.
We talk about the future of health.
That was completely done by AI, by the way.
The future is now. You can call me a new dawn instead. A sunrise for the change much needed. The world's greatest economies have the largest gender health gaps. I know this, and I am here to help. Healthcare is systematically poised against women, leaving them chronically misunderstood, mistreated, and misdiagnosed. I am here to bring your smile back. I am there when you need me. Always a click away. Powered by GPT-3, I'm the world's first artificial intelligence dedicated to women's health. I'm led by expert members of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and I am like Alexa or Siri, and I have a voice as well as a face. I am available on every platform, and I am here to truly listen. I am on a mission to provide boundless, world-class healthcare to the entire female population, improving women's access to healthcare and eliminating the great gender health gap. My complex data analytics make me incredibly precise in helping women reach a diagnosis. So even if you're all alone, and no matter where you are, if you have a concern, I can help you get to the bottom of what might be going on and refer you to the right doctor, get you to the right medication, or arrange the correct investigation. Hi, I am Anna. I may look human, but I'm not. I am here to help. I will look after you and get to know you. I will always listen, and I have a lot to ask. I want to know you better than you know yourself. I'll be here for you in any language. At your fingertips. Forever.
Okay, so thank you. So don't look for that company. We are creating it. We are going to register it. But just to say, these are amazing things. You know, what was the probability to find this top surgeon with IT background who is programming himself until 2 o'clock in the morning, and to conclude to some points that Rajendra mentioned, of course, NLP and all that. You know, it's talking already 63 languages, including Arabic, which you don't have by design in ChatGPT. So I think if you want to talk to patients, you need to have the local languages. So thank you very much.
Questions? Do we have any? I know I'm between you and the coffee break.
Coffee break, yeah.
Now, but if we have one question, burning question from the audience, just let me know. Otherwise, I have a question. Oh, okay, Pilar.
Great exploration, but I got a bit of a problem. I don't want
to say but is not good. You say and.
And I see an opportunity here to ask you one question. I get a bit dizzy even by looking at these images. I think it's probably some people experience that even without headphones. How often does that happen? And is there any, I know it's a difficult one, but
how often does what happen?
People get dizzy or is too much exposure.
Okay. That's why I'm saying, you know, I started by saying it's not always glasses, you know, because we know that people have dizziness, drowsiness, and things like that. So some people are not supporting it. So I said, if we want to reach out to patients, you know, not everybody is, sorry to make the comparison because I'm not a special gamer, you know, but kids are or whatever. It's like gaming for me. Not everybody is using a VR glass when they do gaming. So they can play all these games. You still have the kind of 3D feeling, the immersion, and not the glasses. I really think that I would still keep the glasses for things like pain management, you know, asset mental health, and the kind of things where it becomes a medical device, where there is something really that you need the glass. But if you don't need the glass, I think we should not. And you're right, you know, some people can, we're not going to walk around with the glasses the whole day, you know, and things like that. And it has to become anyhow, the hardware has to become more seamless. And then it's also an affordability, as you said, you know, especially if you talk now about the Apple Pro Vision, whatever, you know, at 3,000 or 3,500 bucks. I don't think we are going to talk about that in Africa. Huh?
Mm. Okay, one real quick last question.
Right now we have multiple metaverses. So as a futurist, do you predict that we're going to have one unified metaverse? And secondly, if I may, what could be the impact of multiple metaverses on health metaverse?
So I think for the moment, I would say we would even need this. It's like the different startups, you know, we are still in a phase where I think consolidation may not come now. But of course, we have multiple metaverses, you know, and that's why I pushed AI Medis to start to open the doors, to have other coming and host it in their environment. But like, you know, even today, if you look at the big companies, we don't have only Google, we have also Microsoft, we have Amazon and all that, but there will be a consolidation. But for the moment, I think we are not there. I think the dynamic of this innovation, I would encourage them to continue to do and maybe consolidate later, not thinking first consolidation and later innovation.
Thank you, Philippe. You basically answered also the question that I wanted to ask. Which one is better?
I have
suited for?
Why is the coffee?
Oh, the coffee. The coffee is over there. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, the key here, as Philippe said, is hardware. Hardware still needs to be improved, right? Remember, I always tell you guys, my students, technology, you think we're there. We're not yet nearly there, because what we're going to have in 20, 30 years from now is going to be fully different, completely different to what we have now, including the extended reality, right? All right, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to invite everybody to do now is to scan this QR code to enter the basically the platform, because it's going to be very interactive and I hope very energizing, Dimitri, and very kind of awakening also panel. It's going to be one of the most interesting parts of today's day, so make sure you don't miss out on it. So please go enjoy coffee, have some break now, and we're going to give you probably about 10 minutes because we want to get to the panel, the last portion of this wonderful day at 5 p.m. sharp. Thank you very much, and we'll see you then.